You ready, Steve?
Let's do it, Spence. Punch it, Chewie!
Welcome to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot, as always, is Steve Madura.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages.
We're two best friends. Despite being fathers and husbands, we just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode number 7.
Number 7. Lucky number 7.
So, Steve, I was taking a look last week, and I know we've got people out there who may or may not care about this, but I care about this because this is our podcast. We've got some new listeners. I can see by the number of downloads that we've got some new people listening, which we are excited about. I'm happy we got new listeners. I'm happy that more people are finding the Fortress of Nerditude. And we're glad you guys are here. We're glad you're joining us.
Now, one thing that Spencer and I have noticed, though, is that interest has come from parts unknown, parts that, to be honest, have come as a bit of a surprise to us. That the four corners of the earth have made their way to our humble fortress. Spence, in particular, I think there's a listener that hails from the great country of Finland.
Yes. Now, all I know, because all I can tell by the statistics, is that there is a listener in, and don't crucify me if I get this wrong, Oulu, Finland?
Does that come with an umlaut for umlu?
No, I don't believe so. And I won't attempt to spell it because I know I didn't pronounce it wrong. I know I pronounced it wrong. I'm sure of it. I butchered it. Let me ask you this. If you are the sole listener in Finland, thank you.
Make yourself known unto us.
Find us on Facebook or Twitter or Gmail, and let us know how you found us, because I'm curious how we got to Finland. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, maybe we could have him send us some lutefisk, or her. Who knows who it is?
Yeah, I don't know, but thank you for listening. Tell your country mates, and maybe we can double that and get it to 2. We also have listeners in the Great White North of Canada, and we happen to know one of them is my buddy Sean Capri. Sean Capri, nice. Great guy. Yeah, he's got his own podcast. Actually, he's got a few. We the Gamercast. He's also on If We Ran Nintendo. And I believe him and Bobby Pauls, which is the co-host of If We Ran Nintendo, which if you guys are not listening to that and you love video games and you're into Nintendo, give that thing a listen. It is great. But I think him and Bobby Pauls are doing a new YouTube project based around video games and Nintendo stuff. And I think it's called maybe Nintendo Talk. I think.
Very cool.
I might be wrong.
Check it out.
Bobby, Sean... correct me if I'm wrong. By all means, hit me up, and we will get that together. I actually, Steve, talked with Bobby and Sean a little bit this last week, and I just kind of reached out to them and said, hey guys, appreciate all the love you guys have shown us on your podcast. Hit us up sometime soon. Let's do something. And immediately Sean responded back, is like, let's do something now. And Bobby then chimed in and it's like, yeah, let's do it. And so we kind of had this semi-formed plan. This was, I believe, Thursday night. Semi-formed plan to get together and record something. I don't know if it was going to be something for If We Ran Nintendo, or something for here for us, for the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, or maybe even something for We the Gamercast, for Sean's podcast. But I told him, I said, the caveat has to be after the kids go to bed, because my 2 little boys, those monkeys, are crazy, and they just, they don't make for good recording. And they both said, yeah, sure. Let us know. As soon as you get them down, we'll go. Well, when my boys went to sleep, so did Bobby and Sean. So my apologies that it has to be so
tuckered
late,
out.
but we're gonna get together real soon, and we're gonna, I don't know, we're gonna make magic happen. So
Very nice. Very cool. Well, thank you for the love.
yeah, great guys. We, like I said, we've got a lot of people listening, a lot of family and friends, obviously, and then we've got, we're picking up listeners in new places, and I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, and I probably can speak for the bottom of Steve's heart, thank you so much. We are glad you guys are here with us, and we hope you continue to stay with us and tell your friends and family and coworkers and loved ones and people you meet on the street, and even the guy that you rear-ended that one time and all you had a conversation about was insurance, that you mentioned us as well. That was great. Thank you so much.
Wow, that was that was a good little commercial there. I like that.
You like that? Nice.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I would say from the bottom of my heart, but the wizard never gave me a heart. If I only had a brain. Anyway, that's my impression for the night.
oh no, I'm gonna see if I can get a few more out of you.
Yeah.
So Steve, how's your week been? What is new?
Week was good. We kind of rounded out the holiday. We extended it for as long as humanly possible. My wife's family was in town from Colorado, Minnesota. I don't know. I really hit the jackpot. Not only by marrying my wife, because she is awesome, but her family is. I love my in-laws. And I know that a lot of people don't say that, a little faux pas, but I have the best in-laws. I have the best. My wife comes from a large family. She's one of 7. They also adopted a child as well, or he wasn't a child, he was a teenager when they adopted him. But each one of my in-laws loved him to death. So anyway, 2 of my in-laws' families were in town. We hung out with them, and then what was funny is the ones from Minnesota left, and then that night they texted us and said, "Hey, by the way, what are you guys doing on Thursday?" This was on Wednesday night. Like, nothing. And they said, "Why don't we meet in Wisconsin?" And this is they've already driven back to Minnesota at this time. So we're like, yeah, sure, why not? So we meet up in Wisconsin Dells, which for our listeners who aren't from the great Midwest, Wisconsin Dells is the nation's capital, water park capital of the, I don't know if it's the world, but it's surely the country. So, and Wisconsin Dells has made it a little profit center of having indoor water parks. And so we went up to one of these and spent a day and a half with my wife's family on that side. And they have some boys back from college that my much younger boys look up to and idolize. And so they got to spend time with their cousins. Had a great time. Water parks, played games in the evenings, but one in particular was one that I'll post on our Facebook page and also on our Twitter feed. Is there's a water slide that incorporates video games into it. I've never seen anything like it before. You get this sled that has 2 handles on either side, and on each handle there are 2 buttons, and they're colored red, green, orange, or blue, or something like that. And you put this sled inside this kind of kiosk screen before you go up the stairs to get on the water slide, and it reads your wristband, so you keep your score throughout the day or your stay or however long you're there. And then as you go down the water slide, you go through these different colored rings. They're lit. The water slide is lit, different colors of the 4 combinations, and you have to push the buttons as you go through. And the closer you are to kind of the bullseye or the center of this ring as you go through it, the better points you get, right? And so as you go through the day, I mean, they have the scores that kind of run on these big boards in the water park that say you're in the top 10 of the day, or you've had the highest score the last hour or whatever. And it was, I was like, video games and water slides? I am all about it, the perfect combination.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It's kind of like a Guitar Hero, where you've kind of got to time it right as you go through these different, kind of benchmarks or whatever, checkpoints. So anyway, really fun. Had a great time with the family, and just a great kind of Christmas and New Year holiday. So it was pretty awesome. So how was your week?
It was good. I have to admit to you, in all my years growing up in the Midwest and in Chicago, I've never been to Wisconsin Dells. It's never...
Are you serious?
Yep. It's just never been like a thing that my family ever did. My parents never had much inclination to go up there and go to water parks. Matter of fact, I don't think I went to my first water park until I was in like my early 20s. It just was never a thing we did. as
Yeah,
a
so not,
family.
not not a lot of not a lot of inclination for fun or joy or happiness in general.
Well, not in that respect. I mean, no. Anyway, just we've never been, and I know they've got like 5 18-hole mini golf courses all strung together at Wisconsin Dells. You can play and do like 96 holes straight or some
Yeah.
craziness like that. I've just never done it, and every time I come out and visit you, you never take me either. So I don't know what to tell you.
Blame it on me, Stapleton. No,
Every
it's
single
yeah,
time I can.
yeah, Wisconsin. I mean, they have water parks, they have mini golf, they've got like quadrant level go kart places. I mean, it's a little bit out of control, but it's a lot of fun. And it's funny. My aunt, when I was growing up, used to live there. She was kind of a one of the few residents that actually live there and are from there, and she ran one of the large resorts there called Chula Vista. And so we'd go up there like once or twice a year when I was younger, and so I've been to every single moccasin store and confectionery and water park and every other chintzy place that they have to sell their wares. So
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, just never been. My week though was good, for the most part. I'm feeling a little under the weather today. I woke up and I thought I had strep. My throat just instantly was like really, really sore, and I was having a hard time swallowing this morning. And
wow.
yeah, I mean, I had a migraine headache. I just couldn't get it to pass, and so I ended up staying home. And I got my wife and kids out the door this morning, and as soon as they got out the door, like I went right back to bed, and I slept for like another 4 hours. And then I got up and I went and saw a doctor over, just like an urgent care, just to get checked out, just to make sure I was okay. Totally fine, just kind of a rough cold that's going around, but we've had a lot of
Yeah.
people sick at work recently, and a lot of us have really small kids or like young babies, and so we just don't. I don't want to. I just don't want. I want to take every precaution that I don't share. Like if I had strep, I just don't want to share that with anyone. So I decided to stay home today and take it easy, get some rest, and go check out myself at the doctor. So I did that today. But earlier this week, I did something that I've never in my life imagined I would do. It's part of being an adult, I guess. I bought a snowblower for the first time in my life,
Ah.
and that was more of a decision because I don't want to die by breaking my back with all the snow. And we've had another big snowstorm that came through, and so I had a chance to use it. And then we got snow again another time, and I got to use it a second time. And then we had like freezing rain yesterday, and they're saying more snow is supposed to be coming here in another day or two, and then again like later in the week or towards the weekend. So I've done a lot of cleaning my driveway and sidewalks of snow. So that's been fun.
So I got to ask you. So what kind of snowblower did you buy? Because like there are the kind of the lightweight, little ones that are kind of more like snow throwers. And then there's like the two-man Taylor kind that have like the visor and the two like hand grips and like the footstool mounted like it,
Okay,
rideable.
so this thing is a beast. I have to climb into a harness that's got like a 5-point buckle, and I control it like I'm Ridley from Alien in the big machine. No, no, no.
It's like a mech warrior. What like?
Yeah. Let me break it down for you. There's two kinds. There's a single stage, which basically just picks up the snow. It's got like this auger that basically picks up the snow and throws it out. And then there's
Right.
there two stage, which has more augers that like pre-break up the snow and the ice, and then throw it through the auger that actually pushes it up the chute and throws it out. And I ended up I was looking at a single stage by Toro that had great reviews, and I did all this searching, and then I'm usually like, I'm the kind of guy that like, I'll do a little bit of research, I'll kind of know what I want, and
Yeah.
I'll ask around and get some opinions. And then I went into the store, and the salesman started talking to me.
Oh no.
And he said, yes, the one you want's right here, blah, 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 blah. He said, but the two stages are much better. They can help break up the heavier wet snow. They can help break up the ice. da 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 da. And he says 2 stages are a little bigger. They're more of the behemoth, but they're better. And I knew that already. I knew a 2-stage was better than a single stage. And then he said, I have a Toro one here, and it was like $800. But
Hey.
but it had this like really cool like joystick that you grab onto. It looked like a flight simulator stick that you determine how the snow is going to be thrown out. And then he had this one by Snowtech, which is a company that's owned by Aaron's. And Aaron's happens to be one of the big brands in the market, and they make some really fine equipment. And they own this Snowtech brand. And it's a 2-stage, and I looked at it, and it was like $650. So it was $150 cheaper. And so I looked at that, and ultimately I decided, as cool as that joystick was and how awesome that would make me feel every time I had to redirect the snow, it wasn't $150 cool, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, absolutely.
So I went with the Snowtech by Aaron's, and I gotta tell you, it starts right up. I mean, all I do is I turn on the gas, so the gas actually is going to the engine, and then I prime it a few times. I plug in a little electrical cord so I can use the push button start. Boom, it starts right up. I unplug it, and then I'm out in the driveway and I'm throwing snow. And I've actually done my neighbors' sidewalks to both sides of me already, just because it was super easy and I was already there. So it's made it a lot better. I mean, I literally cut down shoveling from like an hour and 15 minute, hour and a half type of deal to like 10 to 15 minutes tops. So
it's funny you mentioned, you kind of feel like, you're an adult when you bought the snowblower. The time that I really felt like I had arrived at adulthood wasn't when I had my first kid or my second or my third or even my fourth. It was when I bought life insurance.
Ah, yes. Yep.
Yeah, you contemplate your own mortality and you're like, I'm buying life insurance? Really? Then I knew I arrived.
For me, it wasn't like when I bought the home. It was when I got into this house, and it was my first house I've ever bought. We bought a home. It'll be 3 years in April. And
congratulations.
Thank you. We moved in, and I realized I have a yard. So I had to go buy a lawnmower and a weed whacker, and I got a little spreader to spread fertilizer. And like, I've dropped all this money into like yard equipment because it's my responsibility to keep up. Man, I'd lived in apartments since I was 18, and I'm turning 38 in March. So I mean, it had been a good like 17 years at the time of apartment living, where I don't have to worry about picking up leaves and blowing snow and mowing the lawn. And that
junk adds up.
That, and when I had to replace the guts of the toilet, like the little flusher thing and the little ball float and whatnot. When you have to take apart a toilet because you can't just call maintenance, that's when it sinks in.
Yeah, homeownership really stinks sometimes.
Yep. So, but anyway, it's the snowblower's working great. I'm really enjoying it. The boys all want to look at it and they want to see it, and I won't let them get anywhere near it because I'm afraid, that they're going to get sucked up into that thing, and I don't know. So
it's funny because I actually have my boys out doing the snowblower. They're like 10. The neighbors are like, he's a bad pair. And I'm like, he's busted his hump, earning his keep.
Yep.
Yeah, very cool.
Let's see what else happened this week. Everything else is just kind of a normal week, wife and kids, still watching Parks and Recreation on the Netflix, working our way through it. We're into the last season now. And so when that's over, I'm going to switch over and get on to something from my list, which is going to be Stranger Things.
That's right. I was going to hold you accountable if you said anything otherwise.
So we're gonna get going on that. But cool. Week was good. Week was fun. I'm glad to be back with you.
Very cool. Well, all right. Well, Spence, let's get to it.
Let's get to it, Steve. It's time for some Rebel Intelligence. I always have to let you know, Steve, that many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
Okay, so the first thing I wanted to kind of talk about that I saw, Steve, you ever notice when you go to the movies or you see a trailer for a movie that sometimes you see things that are in the trailer that don't actually make it to the movie?
I do, yeah.
And sometimes I always wonder, like, why did they cut that out? Or, what was the reasoning behind that? Because that was a really funny line or something that
Yeah.
looked cool, right?
It was good enough for the trailer. Why wasn't it good enough for the movie?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So this has kind of been bugging me a little bit with Rogue One. The director, Gareth Edwards, actually came out in an interview just recently and talked about, that scene in the Rogue One trailer where it shows Jyn Erso and she's kind of in that black kind of like hallway, and she turns just as like the whole thing kind of like lights up.
Yes.
You know that scene I'm talking about, like all kind of like panel lights and kind of like starts lighting up from the floor and then overhead.
That's what we used for the photo for
Yes.
our podcast. Yeah.
Yes. So I thought that was super cool looking. It's not anywhere in the film. So he actually was in an interview and he explained that something that they did on that movie was they would take an hour a day that they called like their indie hour. And basically they would shoot stuff that they thought looked cool or whatnot. And something happened where Jyn Erso's character is standing in that hallway and like one of the lighting tech guys flipped the lights on and she turned, and Gareth Edwards saw this and like literally they'd broken down set for the day. Everyone was like walking off and he's like, wait, hold on, come back. This will just be 10 minutes. And they took a take of it and they did it again, and then they took a few more takes, and next thing you know, it was like, half hour, 45 minutes instead of just the 10 minutes. But basically, it was kind of this idea that they would just shoot things that looked cool or something caught their eye that maybe would make it into the film, maybe not. And he actually had forgotten about that like little thing that he just shot because it's like, 3 seconds long. But apparently the marketing department, though, when they were kind of looking through stuff, they found it. And when they put together the trailer, the teaser trailer, they tossed that in there. And then, of course, everyone asks why it's not in there and what happened. There's also a scene of director Krennic like walking across like this water with like this kind of cape trailing him, just kind of barely touching the water. That wasn't in there either. Once again, it's just stuff that they
Was that like a Frozen moment when she's walking across the water?
Kind of. That's
Nice.
kind of how it looked.
Nice.
Anyway, so apparently this is kind of a thing in Hollywood that sometimes they'll obviously shoot stuff that's supposed to be there that gets cut and they'll use it. But then other times they just film something that they thought looked cool, but then never had any intention to use. So I thought that was really kind of cool. I like the behind the scenes stuff. I like to know that kind of things.
The cutting room floor, it's interesting because we actually record this podcast for like 7 hours, but we really only cut it down to 1 hour. So a lot of stuff you guys miss out there, just letting you know.
So what you're telling them is that eventually we're going to have to clip together a trailer of all the unused bits from our podcast?
Oh, that's all the inflammatory stuff we've got to cut out for the censors,
Yeah. For the children.
This is a family show. Come on. That's very cool. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, and I think you've seen this as well, but there's a kind of a spoof video out there that's Where is Thor? So after the last Marvel, Captain America: Civil War, for those that have seen it, Hulk is not anywhere to be seen, nor Thor.
Right.
And
right.
A lot of the fans were kind of like, well, where's Thor? Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? And this spoof kind of goes into where he's at. He's gone back to Australia, kind of taking things a little slower for a little bit, and he's acquired a roommate named Daryl. And so, anyway, just a funny spoof goes through. He's lonely. He's having lunch with David Banner and
Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner, yeah, and gets a call from Tony Stark, and Thor's like, I'm trying to get a hold of him. Would you tell him I'm trying to get a hold of him? And he goes past the phone number. He's like, he doesn't have the time. I'm sorry. He's got to go.
Right.
So you can see Thor is missing the action. But anyway, a funny spoof. Catch it if you can. And I think there'll be. Didn't you tell me there was going to be another kind of similar video?
There's going to be a second one of these kind of like Where is Thor, Team Thor videos that's going to be included with the Blu-ray and digital release of Doctor Strange, which comes out next month in February. So we'll get to see a little more sweet Thor Daryl action.
Sweet Thor and Daryl action. That's right. So anyway, funny clip. Catch it if you can.
Yep. Yeah, man, I thought that was so good. I love Conan O'Brien, Steve. I find him really funny. I don't know about you.
As do I.
Awesome. Well, so Conan, they've just announced that he's got this like little series that he does. You know, he kind of does these remotes or these little vignettes. And one of them, the one he's been doing a lot lately that I love, is called The Clueless Gamer. And basically it's Conan O'Brien just bumbling his way through video games, and he will take a new video game and he'll play it with celebrities, football players like before the Super Bowl. He'll play it with his IT, not IT guy, his kind of like technical guy, digital guy that's on the show. Aaron Blair is his name, and they play video games, and he mocks them and he jokes and he just makes fun of it, and he gets weirdly aroused by some of the female characters. But anyway, this series, the series is going to get its own show. They're going to spin it off, kind of similar like the Carpool Karaoke that James Corden does on his show.
Right.
Is getting spun off, and kind of how Lip Sync Battle from the Tonight Show is being spun off and has its own show on Spike. Conan.
I was going to say, is this going to be like an actual TV, or it's going to go to like, comedians in cars getting coffee?
I'm not quite sure of the full details, but I know he's getting his own series, and I know they're spinning it off, and I'm okay with that because, man, most of these Clueless Gamer episodes are really, really, really fun. I mean, just good stuff. One of the most recent ones, Conan O'Brien is in this office, and he's playing, I was going to say with Frodo. He's playing with Elijah Wood, and they're playing the newest Final Fantasy 15. And Conan is just like tearing the game apart. I mean, just like ripping it apart. It's hysterical. Then he realizes that the people that made this video game are like right outside the room, and they're actually watching him as he's recording this thing. So they've been listening the entire time as he's ripping them apart. And because of where the room is, he has to walk past all these people on his way out of the place. People who have dedicated the last few years of their life to making this thing, and then of course Conan tears it apart in, inside of like 8 minutes. But anyway, it's really, really funny. I love Conan. I really like his sense of humor, and I'm glad he's going to spin this off. It'll be good to see more of this. So.
I have always loved Conan, and back during the Tonight Show and that whole thing with Jay Leno and stuff. I mean, and then he ended up going to TBS and whatnot. I have always been a Conan fan, and there was actually a summer. I was doing a summer job out in California, and one of my sales reps had, I don't know if he rented it or bought it or whatever, but it was the Conan like best of. It was like a 2-disc set, and I remember watching, like we would watched it like a dozen times over that summer. Oh my gosh. I mean, everything from, the Incel Dog to some of the skits he's done. I mean, just like, he was as you probably know, he was a writer for The Simpsons early on in the early seasons, some of the best seasons 2, 3, I don't know. He did, half a dozen or so.
He also wrote for Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, just like talented, fantastic. Yep. Anyway, so I'm a big fan. We'll check that out. My last thing, maybe not as newsworthy. Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage, hit the internet with a trailer and the I guess not the sequel, because I think in 2005 they tried to do a sequel to the first Triple X, but Vin Diesel for whatever reason was not available. Maybe he was doing Fast and Furious 11-teen, but Ice Cube, stood in the role, and I don't think fans took too kindly to him. So after many a year, they have come up with, I guess, another return of Triple X to the theaters, but it was well received. It hit 100 million YouTube views in just 2 days.
Wow.
So whether you like Vin Diesel or not, there's definitely been some caged up interest, pent up interest in his character. So I'm not a big fan, but it's
I'm not a big fan of that pun you just made. Caged up interest.
Well, I do what I can. But there are always those scenes like in action movies, and it's not like the falling from a plane. It's not the crazy fight scenes. It's always like these little things that like put me over the edge of like, okay, I've believed everything else and I've suspended reality, but that I'm done. You push the envelope. The camel's back has been broken. And for that movie, for Triple X, the first one, was this scene where like he's trying to escape from some enemy compound. He takes this dirt bike, he launches it up, and then he like gets the bike like horizontal with the ground, and flies through like this thin like 2-foot space of barbed wire. Flies right through it. I'm like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah,
I have now
maybe on
the
X Games you'd see someone attempt to like fly over something like that, but not like through something like that with like no deviation. Otherwise you're gonna die.
Yeah. And then the other one on Mission Impossible, and I don't remember which one it is, the second, the third, I don't know. But it's the end when Tom Cruise is fighting the bad guy. I don't remember which one it was. And there's like a gun buried in the sand. And suddenly, like right at the end, he like kicks the sand. The gun pops straight up into his hand. He grabs it and shoots the guy. I'm like, there is no freaking way that David freaking Beckham could kick that gun and make it fly straight up into your edge. I'm done.
If it has to do with Mission Impossible and kicking, it has to be the second one, because that was Kicking Impossible.
That was Ben Stiller.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Well, going along with the Where is Thor, man, I loved those spoofs. We'll just call it Kicking Impossible.
Yeah.
And it was like Tom Cruise, Crooze, like he's harmless.
Yeah.
He's harmless.
Those are the MTV Music Awards he did that for. Back in the day.
Awesome. Those are great.
I told you over the Christmas break, or for Christmas, I guess, I got the Google Home device, the kind of the new speaker that's got the new Google Assistant in it. Well, some guy has taken 2 of these Google Home devices, and he's streaming it currently on Twitch, or was streaming it on Twitch, and he's having them talk to one another. And the conversation's been going on for a while, and apparently somehow they got into the existence of, is there a God? And these two AI assistants,
Skynet is upon us.
Right, these 2 AI assistants are talking to one another about whether or not God exists, and it's funny, like the transcript's like, are you God? And it's like, no, I'm not God. Are you God? No, I'm a little girl. Oh, I know little girls. Do you know this? And it's like, well, I was talking about God, and it's this like weird kind of like random non sequiturs at times. It's really kind of funny to watch and see. Anyway, I only have one of these devices, so I'm just basically going to have to sit Charlie down in front of it and have him talk to it and probably accomplish the same thing. So,
Daddy, we talked about dark energy. What the heck?
And we talked about Chuggington on Disney Junior. Okay, yeah, sure.
Ran the gamut.
Yep. So anyway, that's a little slice of Rebel Intelligence and what's kind of going on around the world this last week. So
very cool. Very cool.
Last week we had a great conversation about the things we're looking forward to in 2017. And our question of the week that we put out to you was, what are you most looking forward to in 2017? And we got a few responses that I wanted to read. The first one was from an old friend of ours, Holly Tunnel Carter on Facebook, and she says, wow, to wake up alive every single day. Well, at least mostly. So
to mostly wake up or mostly be alive, because you can be mostly dead.
Right, but
to quote Billy Crystal from Princess Bride.
I thought the same thing too. I was like, mostly alive or mostly awake? Not quite sure.
We'll have to hit Holly up for that one, but a good friend and good to hear from. Man, I love those tunnels.
Yeah, me too. But I'm going to tell you what, if she was making a subtle Princess Bride quote, even though it kind of was a little muddled. Props to her, because that's awesome.
Right on. Right on.
Also sticking on Facebook, Chase Van Orden, a former coworker of mine and a good guy, says, in addition to just about everything you guys mentioned in your last show, I'm really looking forward to Marvel's Defenders on Netflix and Thor Ragnarok. Given DC's track record to date, I'm cautiously optimistic about the Justice League movie. And I'm really looking forward to a Cleveland Indians World Series championship.
Oh, hey, no.
And you know what? Hey, at any other given time, okay, first of all, I agree with everything Chase said, except for the Cleveland Indians part here at the very end. And that's only because they were going up against our Chicago Cubs, and that was a great
current
World
reigning
Series.
World Series champions.
Yep. And we needed that win, I think, more than anyone on this planet. And I'm so glad that happened. But the Cubs look competitive and could be competitive for the next decade. And if that's the case, I can't get with Chase on the Cleveland Indians World Series until the Cubs are completely out of it. So,
right.
Not a knock against him. He's a great guy. It's just not a knock against the Cleveland Indians either, because they were amazing and they played excellent. It's just a preference for the Chicago Cubs.
There you go.
And by the way, I must say, I'm doing things right in the parenting department, Steve, because my boys know the lyrics to Go Cubs Go, and occasionally they just kind of break out into it. And just like earlier this week, Charlie and Jackson and I were all singing it. And then like later that day, we asked Charlie if he would say a prayer over a meal we were eating. And in the middle of the prayer, he started singing Go Cubs Go.
and God was probably pleased.
I mean, I really wanted to stop him and correct him, but I figured I'd let it go for a while. Anyway.
Speaking of kids say the darndest things, do you recall that one time when your sister, who shall not be named, had I think your family had recently watched Forrest Gump, and I believe it was at the dinner table when out of the blue, little Caitlin Stapleton just says, "Viet blanket nam," and your mom's like, "Caitlin!"
Yes, I do remember that. And
why do they choose those lines?
Or maybe like the time your little sister walked in as we were eating cereal at your dinner table, and she says, "Stevie, I hate Jesus Christ," out of nowhere. Yeah.
But after the exorcism, she was fine. She had a little bit of recovery.
She's fine. I mean, she did spend a little bit of time in a mental institution, but she's much better now. All the meds are doing well for her. No,
we got some holy water.
I'm just teasing, but yes, kids do say the darndest things. Charlie has been known to quote the Pledge of Allegiance in the middle of prayers before, out of the blue. So I mean, things.
I'd let that go. That's fair game.
Hey, I let Go Cubs go for a while. I'm gonna let the Pledge of Allegiance go as well. Yeah.
Yeah, my kids know Go Cubs Go. We actually woke them up with it for the entire month leading up to the World Series.
Nice.
No joke. Every morning, so they know it and know it well.
I've been singing it to them at bedtime as one of our bedtime rituals. We sing a couple songs, and usually it's like I'm a Child of God or Silent Night or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, but I've been mixing in Go Cubs Go, so anyway.
Really gets them settled down for bed, I'm sure.
Yes. The last response I wanted to get to, because then we need to kind of wrap this up and move on a little bit. My brother, Josh Stapleton, reached out, and he said the thing he's most looking forward to in 2017 is the Nintendo Switch. And I'm in agreement. Nintendo's going to be talking later this week, or weekend, I guess, and giving more details on the Nintendo Switch. I'm in. I've got money set aside. I'm ready to pre-order this thing. I'm excited by the opportunity that Nintendo could have a great console once again, get the new Zelda, get some Mario Kart going on. And my kids are still a little young, but this could be the first Nintendo console that they play. And I'm excited for that as well. So I agree with my brother. Nintendo Switch. I'm excited for that. I mean, and I brought that up and I talked about that last week. So
yeah.
We definitely appreciate all of the interest and all of your answers. I know sometimes we don't always get to everyone's answers, but we do appreciate you responding to us and letting us know what you think. Kind of going on, last little bit of information is we're going to be doing another movie club coming up at the end of this month, and we want you to watch the movie with us because we want to take some questions and answer your questions, and we'll ask you a question, and then we're going to start looking for people to join us every month for the movie club. And this month, for the month of January, we've decided to watch the new remake of The Magnificent Seven. This movie just came out this last year. It's on iTunes. It's available everywhere. So go watch that if you haven't. If you have, maybe rewatch it. I don't know if you've got it. But we're going to talk about The Magnificent Seven. And if you're interested in being on the show, let us know either through Twitter, Facebook, or our email. And we'll see if we can make that work. So
Yeah, I've heard of some really good things about this movie, and you know, I'm not always about remakes. You know, when they start treading on you know, my childhood of the Footlooses of the world, the Goonies, the Ferris Day Off, and all the rest. But this I've heard is actually a really good remake. I mean, anything with Denzel Washington is usually going to be pretty darn good.
And Chris Pratt is in this thing. I mean, Chris Pratt is everywhere right now, and he's one of the big up and comers, and he's anyway. So I'm excited to watch this. I haven't seen it yet. I've got it purchased. It's been sitting in my iTunes queue for a while, and I'm excited to see this thing. So
cool.
Yeah. So Steve, last week you were talking about the Wits and Wagers game you played over New Year's with your family. We like playing board games in our household. Board games, are really a lot of fun, and I'm always down for new board games and learning about board games. And so I know we kind of decided that let's talk about some different types of board games and give some recommendations of some board games. And right before we get to that, I want to tell you something that my buddy Ed Placentia had posted this on Twitter literally 5 minutes before we started recording tonight. And
really?
It's this story that Kristen Bell, Kristen Bell, the actress, and Dax Shepard, the actor, are married, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Golden Globes were last night, and there's all these big, huge after parties, all this, big hoopla and all this amazing parties, right? Their plans, and apparently they'd been telling people about this, and true to what they said, their plans was to go home, get into their PJs, and play board games. And they played Settlers of Catan, and they snapped a picture and they put it up on their Instagram account. And it's actually, they didn't do the PJs. They're still dressed up. I can see Dax Shepard wearing a suit and a tie, and Kristen Bell's wearing a dress. And it's just the two of them sitting around like their dining room table playing Settlers of Catan. And I kind of thought that was really cool because I know board games are, I think, kind of a universal thing to families, right? I mean, everyone probably has played some sort of a board game at some point in their life.
Right.
But I thought it was really cool to see, here's these big celebrities that are just foregoing the big parties. They're going to go home and they're going to play a board game.
That is awesome.
And so
and some good PR for Settlers of Catan, man. Not
right. No kidding. Anyway, I want to thank Ed. I know he wasn't specifically sending that out to me. I know he had no idea what we were going to be talking about tonight, but Ed is a great guy, and he's also a fellow Cubs fan, and he is one of the best people out there you're ever going to meet, and he just knows like my soul and my heart and what's going on, and he just knew somehow. Call it fate, call it luck, call it karma, call it whatever. There it is.
That is cool. It's funny because the reason, we play a lot of games on my family, and it's board games, card games. My wife has made a book of games that she's given to her family that are just a bunch of different card games and whatnot. And what I find is the draw for games is that it is I don't know. It creates conversation. It creates opportunities just to laugh and to have a good time. There's bonding that happens. It's kind of like a lubrication for just being together. And
It can also ruin friendships and break up marriages if you do it
oh yeah,
correctly.
yeah. I remember the Newlywed game we played with you early on in our marriage, and we almost yeah.
Monopoly. It's Monopoly for me. I'm competitive, and for some reason, I don't view Monopoly as a game of fun. I view it as a game to crush people's souls. So,
No, I'm serious though. The Newlywed game, I remember specifically when, and I don't know if it was when I played it with you, but we were sitting, might have been with some anyway. And the question is like, who, like the worst question you could ever ask. Who in the room does your spouse find attractive other than you? I'm like, what the crap? Like, are you trying to get me in trouble? Like, I'm gonna have to
did
plead the
you
fifth
do
on
the
this
right
one.
thing and answer the other male in the room to try to distract?
Is that really the right move? My wife starts to question my persuasion.
Well, let me ask you this. Which answer would get you into less trouble? Saying the wife of your friend turns you on more than your wife, or saying your friend turns you on more?
In a totally platonic way.
Yeah, babe, totally. Seriously, which one would not get you in trouble? Or get you in trouble least?
I would say, do they have a dog? Is there a dog?
Nope.
I don't know.
You're just in trouble all around now.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lose-lose situation. It's like, do you hit the nuke or do you?
Wow.
Yeah. So that game cannot be played in our home ever.
Wow.
Ever. So, yeah. I'm
gonna have to ask Carrie about that.
Yeah.
That's so bad.
It is the worst, man.
Wow.
Worst. But there are a lot of games out there, going along with the podcast, there are a lot of games out there that are just, all different types of games. There are board games, card games, strategy games, party games. And so tonight we thought we would talk about, a few of the ones that kind of have stood out in recent memory. Some of the ones that maybe our listeners have played, have not played. Maybe ones you could check out, but ones that we've enjoyed personally, and we'll tell you a little bit about them. And if they sound good to you, then go check them out, and we'll get 5% of the proceeds from the company.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, Spence, do you wanna go first, or do you want me to lead the charge?
You know what? Why don't I go first?
Sure.
I'm going to cover a party game. Now, I'm going to be the first one to admit I had never played this game until Josh and I went out to Tennessee back in July for the Married to the Games 200th episode. A podcast that I love and listen to. Highly recommend it. They're on Twitter at MTTGcast. If you're into video games and you're into that sort of thing, listen to them. It's 4 guys that they're dads. They talk about video games and life. Their hashtag is life and games and life, right? So I went out there with my brother, and I believe it was Ed Placentia, one of the co-hosts and a buddy of mine. He had this game on his PC, on his laptop, and it's called the Jackbox Games. Basically, Basically, it started off with the game for computers years ago called You Don't Know Jack, and it's like a trivia-based game. Well, in 2013, the company kind of went through a rebranding and change, and they adapted so that their games would work with mobile platforms, tablets, phones, and they put their games on Steam, so you can get it on a PC or a Mac through Steam. It's now on Xbox One. It's also on PS4, and they made these games so that they're able to be streamed over Twitch. So Twitch is a service that allows you to stream video games or stream content, and people can watch it live. And right. The Jackbox games, you can buy them individually, or you can buy them in these big party packs. And I own Party Pack 1 and I own Party Pack 2, and I got them on my PS4. And I only bought them because when I was in Tennessee, at the end of the MTTG 200th episode, everyone that was there stayed around. We were eating pizza and just kind of hanging out, and all these people, it was great. I mean, I can't tell you how cool it was. All these people from all over the country, from Seattle and Salt Lake City and Tennessee and Texas and Ohio and Illinois and everywhere, came together, and we were hanging out, and we started playing some of these games. And I want to talk about two of these games in particular. The first one is Drawful. And basically, the way the game works is you see it up on the screen, and you log in to a little jackbox.tv, and you put in the little code on your phone or your tablet. And basically, it gives you like a word or a unique phrase, and all 8 of the people that are playing, they basically have to draw whatever the word they get is. And once they're done completing it, they lock it in, and then what it does is, one at a time, it'll display someone's drawing, and it doesn't give you the word. And then you have to type in on your mobile device what you think that word or the phrase is for whatever that picture's showing. And then once everyone's locked in their answers, it shows everyone's responses plus the correct response. Then you go through
that's kind of cool.
You go through this round of voting where you try to vote on what you think the correct answer is. If you guess the correct answer, you get points, and the person that drew it gets points. But if you put in a fake answer and a bunch of people choose your fake answer, you get points. And basically, the person with the most points at the end of the 2 rounds, I believe it is, wins. And let me tell you, it is like combining the horrible drawing of like Pictionary with just some really goofy explanations for what they think it is. We laughed ourselves silly playing this game. And it was based on that one game alone that I said, I'm going to come back home and I'm going to get this. And I bought it just based on that, and I've played it with my in-laws here at the house. Ed has actually streamed some games of Drawful from his home in Pennsylvania, and I've jumped on a few times over Twitch and using my mobile device and played with him and some other people from the community. It's a really, really fun game. It's interactive. Everyone that's playing, can do it there. You don't have to have special like little tiles. You don't have to hand out little writing utensils. You just play it on your phone or your tablet.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I can imagine like it would be extremely funny to find out, to see everybody's guesses and like, car, spatula. You're like, what spatula?
Right.
Where did you come up with that?
Right. So there's some of them that still stick out to my mind. Like, I don't even remember, but like there was this one that my buddy's wife drew, and it's Chris McCracken's wife, Stacy. Stacy McCracken drew this picture, and I couldn't tell what it was, and so like my answer was something like eye surgery on a kitty cat. Like that was the response I put, and I don't know
How specific.
I don't know what it was, because it was like, I don't know, it was something with like laser disc something or another, and I don't know. Anyway, but it's funny because like someone draws something and they think that it accurately represents that unique phrase or that word, but it does not come across that way. And so you start getting to the point where you want to make a real guess, but if your guess is wrong, you want your guess to be close to probably what the real guess is, so you get a lot more votes and you get points.
Right.
So it's kind of this thing of, I want mine to be really, really good, really, really close, so I get a lot of points, but I also want to try to guess the correct one when we're actually doing the voting, because I want to get points that way too. A lot of fun. So the second one, though, that's part of this Jackbox party pack, is called Quiplash. And this is another game of up to 8 players. It's 3 rounds, and in the first 2 rounds, every player is given like a humorous question, and they all submit an answer to, but you want it to be a funny answer. You want it to be a quippy answer.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically what happens is the computer or the video game system randomly pairs two people together that answer the same question. And then all the remaining players, like if there's 8 players and you and I answer the same question, the other 6 players are going to vote on which answer they think is funnier. And the more votes you get, the more points you get. If one player gets like all of the votes, they get like a bonus Quiplash score. And then basically you kind of go through the 2 rounds of doing that. And then in the 3rd round, there's one question that everyone's provided with. And then you get to vote 3 times. And you can vote, one vote for 3 different people, or you can put all 3 your votes on one person. And then they tally it all up. And basically the winner at the end with the most points wins again.
So when you say like funny questions, I mean, is this sounds a little bit like an apples to apples type of thing, or a sour apples, or like what can you give us an example of a humorous question that would be asked?
So it could say something like, oh man, put me on the spot. It could be something like, Little Bo Peep lost her sheep and the cow jumped over the blank. And then the 2 people that get that question, they have to put in an answer. And so, you could put in the correct answer, the moon, but that's not really funny.
Right.
But if you had been like, earlier in the evening, you had said something and you were talking about, someone tripping over a couch, when they were trying to get through a room, and you put like, couch as your answer. It's like, and the cow jumped over the couch. People might laugh because it's a callback to something previously that happened or whatever. And, someone else may, they may write, big stinky cheese.
Right.
Okay. And so you basically vote on which one's funnier. So basically it's a little subjective as to your sense of humor. And I know that's probably a really bad example. But that's kind of the idea, is that it gives you some sort of random quote or random little, tidbit, and you basically supply what you think to be the funniest answer. And sometimes if you don't have something and you can't think of something, when the timer runs down, when you have to put in your answer, it'll kind of just automatically kind of give you a somewhat generic answer. It's still a little funny,
sure.
But it's not great. So
it's funny though, because like when I've played apples to apples or things like that, I loathe that game, because you play it and people are like, okay, do you want to do like sour apples so it's funny, or do you want to do just regular apples to apples? And people are like, oh, regular. I'm like, are you serious?
I hate that game.
They're like, yeah, so like there's a card that says sticky, and then somebody puts gum, and then everybody says, oh, that's the closest, so it wins. I'm like, this is painful. Like, I would rather
it's basically
stick
like
a pen in my eye.
Yeah, it's basically like, let's bring out a thesaurus and let's just find a whole bunch of synonyms. I mean,
yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I don't care for that game either, because when we play apples to apples, I try to be as humorous and inventive and creative. I want people to laugh. And so it's the same thing. It's like, yeah, sticky, and someone puts gum, and I'm like,
somebody else puts fingers. I'm laughing.
Right. And I'm like, widget. And I'm like, they're like, what? A sticky widget? What the? I don't get what that is. And
or sticky pickle. Or,
yeah. And like, people are like, well, what does that mean? And if you have
to
explain,
a pickle's not sticky. I'm like, oh, forget it, you people.
Yeah, if you have to explain a joke, it's not funny, right? And it dies.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, Quiplash though, it's pretty easy to kind of get along. It's different because you understand you're trying to be funny. It's not, hey, let's just try to make something that sounds like it belongs here. It's, let's try to be something funny. So you want it to be quippy, which is the reason why it's called Quiplash. Now, those are just 2 examples. In the Party Pack 1, it's got like 5 or 6 games. Party Pack 2's got 5 or 6, and they're coming out with the Party Pack 3 that has a murder trivia party, kind of like one of those murder trivia games. That's going to be included in it, plus some others. I know, like I said, my buddy Ed Placentia has Eddie has gone and done like a preview of the TV murder party, I believe it's called. The company Jackbox Games was like reaching out that said, who wants to kind of preview this, blah blah blah, and I think he got selected to do it, and so I kind of got in on a weekend preview weekend, and
That's cool.
he loved it. He posts some of it up on the YouTube for Married to the Games, and anyway, I saw this. I played this when I was at MTTG 200 with my brother in Nashville. Loved it. Came home, got it. I've played it with family. I've played it with friends. The nicest thing about this, and I'm going to say this again, is that you don't have to have a ton of people over. If you have a computer and you have it on Steam, you can set up a Twitch account and you can stream this and you can invite friends from all over to play. They just have to be able to connect to the internet to see it. Same thing with Xbox One, same thing with PS4. And so really it's a party game that you can play whether you got the party in your house or the party's on the internet.
Okay, so one of the games that I wanted to talk about was a game that we actually played this weekend with my wife's family from Minnesota, and this is one that's kind of it's a newer game to the scene. It's a card game, and it's one from not a big game maker. It's not from I don't know, Milton Bradley or Parker Brothers, things like that. It's Grandpa Beck's Games. And they currently have 4 games on the market. The one I'm going to talk about tonight is Cover Your Assets. There are 3 other games.
Wait, what was that again?
Cover Your Assets.
Can you say that a little louder?
Cover Your Assets. The other 3 are Skull King, Nuts About Mutts, and Golf. And they've all been really well reviewed. I've read some reviews that people have actually met the maker of this game. His name is Brent Beck, and he's a father of 5. He works for Alaskan Airlines in the Seattle area. He also has a student or a son who's a student at BYU, Idaho, which oddly enough is where Spencer and I went to college. So he was big into games as a family man and whatnot, and he really kind of used games to draw his teenagers who would prefer to go into their rooms and sit in front of video games all night and whatnot, to kind of bring them out, and experience some family time, and just had really good experiences with that. And so people love the games that he kind of created, and he thought, let's go and market these. And so he has. They've been really well reviewed. A lot of the game expos. There's a big expo here in Chicago. It's the Game and Something Expo. Anyway, it's usually in February. And I have friends that go to it, and it's pretty awesome. They display new games. Anyway, Cover Your Assets is a game. It's a card game, pretty simple to learn. And what I like about it as well is it's quick. It's not, I'm not a big Risk guy or Axis and Allies, as I've said before. Even Settlers of Catan. Sorry, Jax. But
Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell.
Right.
If they're listening, of course, right?
Right, which they are in Finland. But this game takes just a few minutes to learn. It's basically, your goal is quite simple. It's to reach $1 million before anybody else, and you win. And this usually happens in 3 to 5 rounds. They're all pretty short, and it can be played with just a handful of people. But basically what you're trying to do is you start off with 4 cards, and the cards range from different assets. So there's they range in value from I think $2,000 to around $20,000, and they're for different assets like yachts or cash or antique cars or house or whatever. And the idea is that you start by making a pair. So either you have 2 houses, each worth $20,000. You have 2 jewels, each worth $15,000, and you place your starter asset, right? That asset is untouchable by anybody else on the board or anybody else that's playing. But after that, you place that in front of you, vertically, I guess you'd say. The next asset you place, whether it be a pair of jewels or a pair of houses, you put that horizontally, and you continue to stack these in a crisscross pattern. Anything beyond that first asset that you place is stealable by anybody else that's playing, right? They just have to have one of those assets. So let's just say you have your starter asset, which is a pair of houses or something like that. Your next asset is 2 cards that are both jewels at $15,000. If I have a jewel card in my hand, I can then steal that by basically throwing the card out and saying, hey, give me your jewels. You can defend that if you have a jewel card in your hand. And the idea is that as the game progresses, the stealing becomes more and more. And so these pair of assets that started out as just 2 cards, they get up to 7 or 8 or 9 cards in that stack of jewels, and that can be made up of other jewel cards, or it can be made up of what the wild cards are in the game, which are silver or gold. They're worth $25,000 and $50,000 respectively. And so by the end of the game, everything's being stolen back and forth, and it's an awesome game. It's quick to learn, and it's a pretty smug feeling when you can at the end of the game, the last hand or the last the move of the round, you steal somebody else's stack of assets, and it's a lot of fun. Check it out. It's a quick game. It's a card game. And
how long does it take to play?
Each round probably takes maybe 5 minutes.
Now, is a round a complete game?
No, so the game is made up of probably 3 to 5 rounds, and again, it's to the first person to get to $1 million. And so with each round, you divvy up and you count whatever assets you have at the end of each round, and they usually range from, let's say somebody could be as low as like $50,000 if they didn't do well and all their assets were stolen throughout the game, and another person could be upwards of $300,000 or $400,000. And it sounds really simple, but it is so much fun, and just being able to steal, and then those people can defend if they either have that same card that you're trying to steal or a gold or a silver. And what's cool about it, though, is I read some of the reviews that people that actually met Brent Beck were really impressed by just the quality of the game, right? They're not like other games people have played. They're very original, and this isn't just some, like I said, Milton Bradley that has lots of money and can just throw out these experimental games, and if they fail, these are actually well thought out games, and they're just a lot of fun to play. So I definitely recommend, if you have it, check it out. I mean, it's just a small packet of cards, so it's not too expensive to pick up, and great as a gift. Stocking stuffer, though Christmas has passed.
How many people can play? Can 2 people play, or does it have to be 4, 6, 8? I mean, how many people would you normally have? What's the fewest? What's the most?
It's a 4-player game. You can go more than 4, but I think you have to have at least 4 to play and to make it worthwhile. But I think we had 8 playing, and the stacks were a little bit less, so it probably took a little bit longer to get to $1 million. But it was just a lot of fun.
It sounds really cool. I'm one of those guys, Steve, that if someone can show me a cool game or explain to me a cool game and grab my interest, I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna try it, especially with games like that don't seem to cost a lot or take a lot.
Well, I think based on your bloodthirsty, backstabbing nature, at least on the Monopoly board, with your Ocular and all the rest, I think this would suit you well, because it's lighthearted backstabbing and stealing. So.
As I was listening to you, I was thinking, how could I maximize my strategy on this game to utterly dominate? And I'm hooked. You got me sold. Do you know what it retails for, just out of curiosity?
I don't know offhand, but I would have to imagine probably around maybe $12 or something. It can't be more. It's
easy,
it's
right?
Yeah.
Not a big deal. I also think about my in-laws. And we tend to play a lot of games when we get together. And I know they're coming out here in February. They usually come out in February to visit. They visit their kids. And so I was just thinking that may be a cool game to go get and to give it a try with the old in-laws. And my mother-in-law, Chris, is really competitive as well. So it's totally awesome when we get together and I totally school her at a game. Because I don't take losing well. She really doesn't take losing well. And of course,
what a wonderful relationship you must have.
We're competitive people, and so we like getting into games that are competitive, and of course we're gonna accuse one another of cheating if we lose. It's the funny thing is that and I love Chris to death. I mean, I do love my mother-in-law. But she is the perfect person to play games with for me, because I know It's not going to be any of this, well, I'll let you win this time. I'll be nice. No, she's going after my throat. She's coming for blood. And I expect nothing less, and I want nothing less.
That's right.
No,
That's right.
no quarter given, none asked for.
I will tell you to round up this game review, it is $12.99 on Amazon right now. I did not know that before, so I'm just I would do really well, and the price is right.
I'm out. Out. Nope. $12.90. That extra 99. I'm done. Nope. Gone.
I'm done. And it's also 5-star rated with 422 reviews on Amazon. So don't take my word for it. Take the Amazon biosphere and.
No, I'm taking your word. I've known you almost my entire life. I'm going to take your word over Amazon's in this case.
That's right.
But that piece of swampland you tried to sell me in Louisiana, no.
The market's coming back, man. It's in the path of development.
Yeah. I've heard that before. Listen, Eric Estrada, I'm not buying.
Now I know, Spence, you're a big strategy guy. Now, like I said, not my cup of tea. I play Settlers of Catan when I am forced to, and there are bamboo shoots under my fingernails as an ultimatum. But I know you're a big strategy guy, and I know there was a game that you were really excited to share with our listeners.
So I do love strategy games. I enjoy games that take a little while if the game is good. If the game is just long, just to be long, no, I'll pass. But I saw this game that I'm going to talk about actually highlighted on a web show that Will Wheaton does called Tabletop. And for me, it was really cool because every week or so during the season when he was running this, he would show off a game, or if they were smaller games, a few games. And one of the games he showed off was this game called Small World. And Small World, if I break it down to its most bare essence, it's almost like combining Settlers of Catan with Risk. Now, if you're not a big strategy guy, you're thinking in your head, this doesn't sound fun. But let me tell you, you're not correct. That's wrong. The reason is that it's not like Risk, that it's, total global domination in order to win. And it's not like Settlers of Catan where you have to worry about all these resources and cards and roads and armies.
Right.
Basically what Small World is it's a map similar to Settlers of Catan, and you choose a race at the beginning of the game, and the race that race card is partnered up with a little attribute card. So you could be orcs that are flying, or you could be humans that are gardeners, or you could be elves that are wizards, or whatever. And you partner up these cards randomly, and everyone chooses a race. And you start off with a specified number of armies. You have to enter in from one of the sides of this little continent. And then basically you try to take over territories similar to Risk. And you need to have at least one more army than the number of things that are on that board. So if, for instance, the territory counts as 1, so if I was going to an open territory, I'd have to put 2 of my little army men into that territory. Mm-hmm. If there was a territory that had a single army from someone else on the board, I would actually have to put 3. 1 for the territory, 1 for the existing army, and then the one above, because you always have to be 1 higher. So I'd have to put 3 of mine. And the idea is you try to put out your armies and take over little things. And when you do this, at the end of your turn, you actually collect little gold tokens for the number of armies you have, the number of territories you possess, and then if there's any bonuses, because there's some bonuses and there's some modifiers, like if you have the towers and you hold the towers, you get an extra coin for this, or something to that nature, right? But here's the thing. You only have a certain number of army people. Eventually, you're going to run out. You're not going to have extra to play on your next turn 2 or 3 turns down the road. So, at some point, you have to push your civilization, your race, into decline. You basically flip them all over and you basically make them neutral. And now you're not going to collect any coins that round. But then when you start the next round, you get to pick a new civilization, a new race, and a new modifier and start all over again. And there's 9 rounds of this game. And you just continue to go until the 9 rounds are up. Whoever has the most gold at the end wins. It's by the Days of Wonder company. They're the same people that produce the Ticket to Ride games.
Yeah,
and
which I like a lot.
Ticket to Ride's a fun game. Although, like I told you, I'm competitive. My brother Josh, his wife Stephanie, is really competitive at that game. She kicks my trash at that game every single time we play, to the point where it's almost not fun because I don't even feel like I have a chance of winning. But I want to beat her sometime. I just don't know how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna have to cheat. That's it. But
it's the only way.
Anyway, Small World. I watched it on Tabletop with Will Wheaton, and I went, "This is really cool." I ran out to my local game store, picked it up, and I believe it was about $45, which is kind of in that realm for those type of games.
But they're really quality games, I find.
Yes.
I'm sure this is the same one, but Days of Wonder, the boards are quality, and like the pieces are quality, and it just, you feel like there's something of substance.
Yep, absolutely. You're right on. It's really well done. And I want to say the game, if you're playing it with like 3-4 people, probably is going to run you 45 minutes, maybe an hour tops. So it's not going to run days long like an Axis and Allies. It's not going to be 7-8 hours long like potentially a Risk can be. It's a lot of fun, and the replay value is high because every single time you play, the board changes a little bit, and the race and modifier combination is always different. And so that makes it a lot of fun because you're never going to play it the same, and how early or how late you push your civilization into decline really can impact if you win or if you lose. Days of Wonders come out with some other expansions for it, so you can buy other races and modifiers, and they've got some other like versions of the game as well. So
yeah, I was gonna say, so I watched that episode as well in preparation for our podcast tonight, and that seemed kind of a neat thing that as with Settlers of Catan and as with another game that I really like, Carcassonne, which we can talk about later or another podcast, but the game, the topography changes, but also that attribute that changes as well, which I think you said earlier in kind of the prep of this. You said the gardening humans. I can imagine that their cabbage firepower would be off the chart.
I mean,
is there actually a gardening human?
I don't remember if it's gardening.
Aren't they just going to be annihilated by the? I mean, what are they?
It's basically something.
Run for the carrots.
Yeah, it's basically something where like their modifier is, if you hold farmland, you get extra defense or extra coins or something like that.
So. Their modifier is their ultimate losers automatically. No, but the game actually looked like fun, and I will say Will Wheaton, he is a high profile nerd.
Very much so. And let me tell you this.
Funny guy. Seems like a really nice guy.
Funny guy. He's all over the internet. I mean, he's into nerd and pop culture stuff. Man, I would love to have Will Wheaton on our podcast. Shout out to Will Wheaton. If anyone knows him, make this happen.
Yeah.
But Will Wheaton and Chris Hardwick, who runs the Nerdist podcast, and he also does the Talking Dead after show called The Walking Dead. Will Wheaton always, they kind of like try to one up each other on like who's the bigger nerd and what's going on. And Will Wheaton constantly calls Chris Hardwick the king of all nerds, and it just drives Chris humorously. It drives him kind of nutty a little bit, because then he's like, no, don't say that, because then everyone thinks that I'm the go-to guy for everything nerdy and da 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 da. And anyway, those two are really funny back and forth. Will Wheaton, Chris Hardwick, they're everywhere. They're into everything. Their podcasts and their TV shows and and whatnot. But I really enjoy tabletop. I think it's a great show, and I love board games, and I love that kind of tabletop type of game, and so I'm totally down for watching something like that.
Yeah, I just think again, to round up this conversation, just games in general, just they bring people together, and I think they bring people together in a different way, not necessarily better or worse, but in a different way than a video game does. And I really appreciate in our family, when we have kind of family game nights, whether it's Pictionary or we've got a bunch of a bunch of games that the kids love. One called Telestrations, which is like the classic phone um, game, but with drawings where you pass it around, and similar to almost like some of the games you mentioned earlier. But anyway, they just make for conversation, they make for memories, they make for laughs, they make for just bonding in general. And I just whether it's among friends, among family, among strangers at a party, they're just a great gathering.
Yep. I
You know,
I agree. It's a good time. I've never, except for some few rare occasions, have I come away from a board game or tabletop gaming session and felt bad or
Newlywed game.
angry. Except
Yeah.
yeah, that Newlywed game. Uh, but
Uh,
I'll tell you this, so Steve, and I know your answer if I were to ask you this, but I never got into Dungeons and Dragons,
no.
which is kind of a tabletop game. I mean, it's a role-playing game, but it's a tabletop game. You use dice and you follow kind of a pre-designed kind of quest, and you've got someone who's a dungeon master who kind of leads you through it. I've never played that, never. It really never was an interest of mine when I was younger, but in the last few years, I'm interested. I don't have a ton of time to put into something. I know there's groups out there and people that play like regularly, like they may get together like 2, 3 times a month and do this because it sounds like it would take a few hours. But it's something that I'm interested in. I like the idea of kind of role playing and making up a character, making up information, and then doing some sort of a quest. So don't be surprised if I tell you and I text you one day and say, hey, I finally did it. I bought the user manual and I'm learning how to play Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm going to try to convince you to get into it with me. Don't be surprised.
If you hop on the Google Hangout prior to our podcast with a cape and a long sword, then I'll know that you've gone off the deep end.
That's more LARPing, and that's live action role play. That's LARPing.
That sounds illegal for some reason. He's been convicted of LARPing and loitering and littering, the 3 big L's, and lewd conduct to round out the 4.
What's the sentence for such a thing?
I would say flogging in the public square.
Life imprisonment.
Singapore style.
Yeah. Anyway, so just a side note, I'm interested in that, and it's something that you may hear from me soon that I've gotten myself into, and I don't know how to get out of it. I don't know, but
there are medications.
Yeah.
Or drinking heavily. One of the shout outs I totally wanted to bring up as well, because I was thinking about this podcast and thinking about some of the games of our childhood of yesteryear, and there's one game that aside from the Game of Life and Sorry and all those things that Kerplunk and all those games we used to play when we were kids, Mousetrap, that never worked. There was one game that I had that my mother bought for me that I have since tried to find online, and it's like, it must be so rare. The cheapest I found it for is like $350.
Ooh.
And yeah. And it's this game, it's called Fireball Island. Okay? For those of you out there that are listening that have had it, please hit us up on social media. So this game, let me just give you a quick rundown before we end. The game board is actually a 3D board. It's a plastic mold of an island, right? And this thing is probably, I want to say like 3.5 feet like wide by about 2.5 feet long. No, vice versa. 2.5 feet wide by about 3.5 feet long. This huge board game, right? And it comes off the table probably by about maybe a foot, maybe half a foot to a foot. And it basically, this huge island that kind of comes up to this volcanic center. And on this center, you put this black idol that has these horns on it, right? It sounds much more demonic and sinister than it is. And inside this idol, you put these red marbles that are the fireballs. And you have these little guys, and you're all trying to run through the island using these different cards and whatnot to get through these little paths that are etched into this plastic molded island. And the graphics are really cool on it. There's a little, water on the outside. There's a little boat to get away. And the idea is you have to go through the island, get the jewels, and then make it back to this boat, this lifeboat that's waiting for you to sail away off the island. The problem is you draw these cards, and these fireball cards, where the idol will come and turn, and it will, you roll down these marbles that will then literally hit your little figure off the path, right? And then he has to go into these different areas if he gets hit. But there's some times that just based on how the marble rolls that it totally like misses or grazes your guy, and you're good. And so I used to play this thing. My mom probably hated this game because I would always ask her to play whenever it was game time, and love playing it. Have no idea where it's at. It's probably in some storage unit somewhere in my hometown. But anyway, I've been trying to get it because I would love to bring my kids to the island.
Wow!
So if anybody's ever played it out there, hit us up because you got love for me.
Nice. While you were talking about it, I quickly looked it up on eBay, and you're not lying. It's expensive to get a complete
right?
one. I mean, I saw one that was
I should have kept it, dang it.
It was like $45. I'm like, ooh, sweet. I'm like, I'll get this for him. It'll be a great birthday present. Nope, that was for the board only. Right. So, not even a full game.
If you can hewn for me the jewels and then find for me some correctly shaped fireballs, that'd be great.
So, yeah, don't expect that for your birthday from me at that price. Wow.
I guess I'm not worth it.
I for years tried to find Master Detective Clue because they went out of print. You could still get the normal Clue, but Master Detective, more rooms, more weapons, more suspects, and
chainsaw, Molotov cocktail.
I finally found it on eBay. This was, I don't know, maybe a decade ago. I found it on eBay and I bought it, and I've still got it. And eBay's great for finding stuff like that, but not at those prices. Not right now.
Yeah.
So
how much did you buy the Master Detective for?
I want to say I got it for like $65 like a decade ago, which still is pretty high considering that the thing probably retailed for like $30.
Right.
But anyway, it's
cool.
I loved that game as a kid. I always thought it was a lot of fun. As an adult now, I kind of look at it and it just doesn't hit me the way it used to, but right. Still a fun game.
It's funny, whenever I play Clue, I'm always like, it was Colonel Mustard with the lead pipe in the conservatory, and they're like, wrong, and wrong. I'm like, dang it.
Yeah, but keep guessing.
Keep horrible guessing. At that game.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So Steve, we gave some recommendations of some games. Cover Your Assets for a card game, the Jackbox games for a party game, Small World for a strategy game, and then you also hit up the Telestrations shout out and the Fireball Island
retro, we'll say.
The retro, and I also kind of little shout out for my desire to get into Dungeons and Dragons in the role-playing game genre. So my question for the listeners this week is going to be, what games do you recommend we should play? There's lots of games out there. There's lots of different varieties. I'm always down for finding a good game. I'm always down for finding people to play with. So if there's a game that we can play with our listeners somehow to arrange through the interwebs, through a Google Hangout, I'm down for that sort of idea. So that's my question to you guys. Let us know on our email, which is fortofnerd@gmail.com, or Facebook, Fort of Nerd, or Twitter @Fort of Nerd, and let us know what board game, party game, card game should we be playing. What's something you would recommend? Maybe something obscure, maybe something run-of-the-mill. Just let us know, and we'll take a look, and we'll take your recommendations in.
Yeah, man.
So, Steve, we talked about it a little earlier. We are extremely grateful for our listeners, for the people that are sticking with us and listening every week. We want to continue to find new listeners. We want to continue to grow this podcast and try to spread our love of nerd and pop culture as far and wide as possible. How can we do that?
Yeah, we need you to rate us on iTunes. We need your votes, so we don't get voted off the island. So rate us on iTunes so the Fortress of Nerditude isn't as hard to find as an inexpensive Fireball Island with all the pieces intact.
Nice. Nice.
And with that, we will bid you adieu, and may the Force be with you always.